Hello everybody and welcome to MMORPG.com's review of Final Fantasy Type-0 HD. I'm Bill Murphy, the reviewer, and just in case you haven't been following us too closely these days, for about a year and a half, maybe more now, we've actually been covering RPGs as well as MMOs, kind of doing both parts of our acronym, so that's why we're covering and reviewing Type-0 HD today. No, it's not an MMO, and in fact it doesn't really have multiplayer at all. So if you were looking for an MMO review, you might just want to keep going. However, if you're a fan of the Final Fantasy series or RPGs, stay tuned. So when Final Fantasy Type-0 HD came out originally in 2011 for the PlayStation handheld, the PSP, it didn't make a huge splash. Chances are that's because no one actually had a PSP, and in America and Europe it never actually came out. It was only a Japanese release. But Type-0 HD brings the action RPG spin-off of the Fabula Nova Crystalis series of Final Fantasy games to the Xbox One and PS4 this month, along with a host of graphical upgrades and tweaks to the original game. But is this a must-play game in the storied franchise? Well, that's what we're here to find out. Originally intended to be a mobile phone game and then brought to Sony's niche handheld, it was nevertheless a success when it sold nearly 1 million copies in Japan within the first couple of months. But the game was only ever released in Japan, so this is the first time Western audiences are being treated to its unique action combat system and the class of military cadets known as Class 0. Before we get on to the meat and potatoes of the review, let me get this part out of the way. The visuals of Type-0 are still pretty paling in comparison to current PS3 games, much less the PS4 and Xbox One, which it's being released on. It was, after all, a PSP title originally. Main characters of the Type-0 class are rendered well, but the rest of the NPCs and lesser characters wind up looking silly compared to the main cast. And when their mouths move, oh lord, it's like a Muppet hour. Voiceovers are similarly bad, but thankfully Square Enix left the Japanese voices for you to switch to if you'd prefer. Me, I always thought it was funny when 9 would end every sentence with the word yo. I'm not going to take that, yo! We're going to settle this now, yo! You'll see what I mean if you pick this one up. Additionally, minus the less than perfect graphical upgrades, the camera in Type-0 is pretty rough. It hangs too closely to your character, gets lost in combat situations, and swings too quickly back behind you when you want to pan around yourself with the right stick. In short, the camera is often a hindrance rather than a help. Lastly, there's a huge cast of playable characters, and while you'll easily level up your favorites just by doing tasks and following the main missions, you'll have other characters that are left behind in the leveling process. The problem with this is that on harder missions you might need these characters, and they'll be woefully underleveled if you do. Grinding them up becomes the only option, and frankly, that's a chore. But those are my biggest complaints, and I'm still going to recommend Final Fantasy Type-0 HD for any fan of the series, or fan of JRPGs in general. The action combat should be a nice warm-up for Final Fantasy 15 later this year, which is also part of the Fabula Nova Crystalis series, and the story is actually a very good one once you're past the subpar acting. Plus, Moogles, people. Need I say more? The overall structure of the game will be familiar to fans. The overworld of the Orience is traversed on foot via chocobo and eventually by airship. Random fights can happen as you roam the world on foot, but not if you're using the chocobo or your airship. The former is one of the best ways to level up between the game's main campaign missions. You'll spend time between the main missions doing side quests, capturing and breeding chocobos, training in the arena, and leveling up your magic and skills via a currency called Phantoma. Doing the main campaign missions progresses the story, but time between each mission can be spent doing whatever, which is often necessary to level the members of Class 0 before facing the next big challenge. You are members of the Rubrum Dominion, stuck fighting against the power-hungry nation of the Militesi Empire alongside the Lorican Alliance and initially the Kingdom of Concordia. Class 0, despite the magic-producing Vermilion Bird Crystal being damaged by the Militesi Empire, still has access to magic. That's part of the overall mystery you're playing through with Ace, Machina, and Rem, and the others. I won't spoil much of the story because that's part of the draw to Final Fantasy. But in a unique aspect of the game's military slant, you'll capture and lose cities throughout the campaign, unlocking new shops and new quests along the way, and sometimes you'll even have RTS-like missions where you command forces on the overworld map as they march and try to take back captured cities. It's not exactly StarCraft by any stretch of the imagination, but it's a nice sort of mini-game between all the regular fights. The action combat is definitely a fun departure for the series, playing like a cross between recent 3D Zelda games and a less hyper-fast Devil May Cry. You can lock onto targets, dodge roll, and cast spells, along with each character's own unique weapon attacks and abilities. There are moments of opportunity when a target's reticle might turn yellow or red, and if you strike them precisely at these times, you can deal great damage or even instantly kill them. Each character can also summon Eidolons at the cost of their lives. Characters don't die permanently, but when they're dead, they will not be usable again during that particular mission. Now, Eidolons are temporarily summoned godlike characters such as Ifrit, Shiva, and Bahamut. These are perfect for boss fights and really help to make you feel powerful when you call upon them. With a wide range of characters to play, each with their own style and skills, a deep and mysterious narrative to go through, and very fun combat at its core, Final Fantasy Type-0 HD is a great way to pass the time between now and when Final Fantasy 15 drops sometime this year. It may not have all the visual upgrades one would hope for on the new gen of consoles, man, I'm tongue-tied, but Type-0 is supposed to be a first game in a brand new series for Final Fantasy, and I personally hope that's the case. The ending most certainly leaves the series open for more stories in this world. In the end, is Type-0 worth the full $60 price tag? I'm one who believes gameplay is greater than graphics alone, and while Type-0 looks a little dated due to its ported status, it definitely makes up for the visual shortcomings with great gameplay and a 40 to 50 hour campaign on top of it. If you like the Final Fantasy and you like third-person action combat, get it and love it. It's worth your time. I'm Bill Murphy, this is MMORPG.com. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter, YouTube, and Twitch at MMORPG.com without the dot. Thanks a lot, guys, and have a good one.